We're going to go from that to everyone's favorite controversy recently.
Well, I'm going to eat some meat.
You should eat some meat. Pastor and Mrs. Fisk, though, they want you to chime in too.
Oh, you guys.
I'm writing
so
to you
sweet.
about CPH's Luther Large Catechism with annotations and contemporary applications. What are your thoughts about all of this? I got to tell you, if you got to say contemporary applications on your book, I'm going to guarantee you it's not going to do what you think it's doing, no matter how good you are. What are my thoughts about this? But to give kind of the super short answer is, yes, it's bad. It's a symptom, not the problem. And our response has been as if it were the problem, which has made our response a distraction from dealing with the problem. The more we yell about it, the less we're going to actually deal with it. So that's where I'm at, and there are other places where this same battle, I think, is more obvious, although it's not in print, right? So, it's not obvious to you in Nebraska at Mount Olive, nowhere, Nebraska, who only knows what CPH publishes, right? To you, this is the writing on the wall. The world has come to almost an end, although it's not that bad. What it is the leaven should stink. It really should stink. You definitely have what we would call woke, which is anti-Christian, ultimately, ideology in like 2 essays that are under the contemporary application part of this 700-page scholastic document, in which I would advocate sometimes it's valuable in scholastic documents to have the guy you think is wrong say something. Okay, so I don't know if that's what the context of this is. I don't think that's what it is. Dr. Kuntz affirms in the show, and I he's the one who's read the stuff, that no, if you go and you look at it, what is being pointed out that they're saying in these documents is indeed surreptitious, deceptive, and poison to Christianity ultimately. And so if we believe these things and they become the norm of our thought about such things as the Catechism, we will ultimately apostatize. Yes. How many of us had pre-ordered the 700-page Catechism with annotations? I really want to know. Because to me, this is just it, right? Is it going to move the bar? Or is it because the bar moved? It's because the bar moved. And if this is your first wake up to the bar moved, I'm sorry that you just woke up. 2020 came and went, Like, you really should have turned your eye not only to the American government and the World Economic Forum, but also to all institutions everywhere that have a vested interest in the dollar. Straight up. They're going to be undermined by the dollar's uneven scales and the need to keep that balance right for the sake of bellies. Period. This goes for me and my house. We got to keep the dollar flowing, right? So just be aware that there is a poison at work in our society, that when it comes to bear on you, you're either going to sacrifice that dollar, right? And that's it. Me and my house. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to sacrifice some of our dollars rather than have them in certain ways, so that we can be faithful to what we want to hold to. What our institutional systems in the Missouri Synod, but we're not alone. We're not special. We're not in any way special. We're just like everybody else. Our institutional systems have sold out to their own existence as being more important than the reasons they exist. And so they will let go of the reasons they exist to maintain their own existence. And over time, that means submitting to the new world way of thinking and talking, so we can keep playing the financially strong game that we were playing in the 1950s, even though we have nowhere near as many people as we had then. And that's why it's not going to work for us. No matter what we do, we can go as woke as we want to go. LCMS is still coming to an end because we demographically are in a collapse. Yeah. So my thoughts are, it's much ado not about nothing, but about the right thing in the wrong place. And I would rather have us focus on the right thing in the right places. Well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. It means your local congregation is your hope. And so before you try to save the synod, how about let's put all of your eggs in your local congregation's basket, and because that probably has enough leaven to deal with just there. I mean, sorry, I'm gonna back up just a touch here. So we got an article in a 700-page document by some guy who probably shouldn't write it, being published by a company that probably shouldn't publish it, and the internet burns down wherever the LCMS was on the internet because of the fire between someone says it's bad and someone says you can't say it's bad on the internet. Love your neighbor, right? And back and forth we go. While that fire is taking place at your local congregation, there is probably 1 or 3 groups that meet once a month or once a week who read resources that are published by organizations that have been LCMS affiliated for 60 or 70 years that are giving them poison every single document they print. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting on your table in your narthex. And all your old ladies take them home and read them. So I don't disagree, but really, 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 this document didn't matter, doesn't matter, won't matter. We have tons of documents that are out all the time that matter a lot, and we just have swallowed them for years. And then at the same time, you're going to sit here, and then you're going to go home tonight. You're going to shout on the internet about how the Catechism, and you're going to go watch, some movie filled with all manner of, well, it doesn't matter. Filled with all manner of idolatry, porneia, and sorcery. That those 3 things are kind of just there. You have to watch it. You have to say, it's wrong, or I'll suspend belief or whatever. But you're going to go do that and think that won't change you. That's not going to move you at all. 3 hours in someone else's dream, not going to change your mind one little bit. Oh, but this footnote in this 700-page document, the church are going to burn down. I think the battle's more in front of our faces than this. Where the battle really did rage here isn't, okay, so we got this great kid, by the way. He's not a kid anymore, a young man, who points out the document's flaws in his Twitter feed. That never becomes anything if you don't have a bunch of actually fairly powerful LCMS individuals go start shaming him on Twitter about how he shouldn't make these kinds of comments in public because it's not following the 8th commandment. Well, you want to see some leaven, there's some leaven right there, right? Forget the woke ideology that one guy who's not in our church body wrote about in a footnote, and look at the behavior of the men who prefer power and the silencing of dissent to any recognition that we might need to repent of some things or our institutions are going to fall under the wrath of God. That's the bigger issue. And I'm not throwing a ball at any individual because, frankly, I know what Harrison did in his responses, and I don't think he could do anything other than what he did as a pious man with the powers he has, aside from things he could have been doing differently this entire time, which have little to do with any decisions he's made. I just don't think he's ever used his bully pulpit the way he could. He has media powers he doesn't touch. I would have been on the internet talking, hello, all the time. As president of the Synod, are you kidding me? Yeah. I'd be in your ear. I can be. I'm going to talk to you. He hasn't done that. He could have done that more right now, walked us through this pastorally more. He didn't. That's not his MO. But I don't mind. My faulting of him of that is just that he could have been a stronger president if he wanted to be. Not like I'm mad at you, Matt Harrison. What? No, he's done a lot of really good things. So, don't take any of this as my saying, he's the problem. I'm saying the greedy system itself is going to eat itself, and you see it in the failure to understand that a question from a young man about orthodoxy is not a breach of the 8th commandment, and that the internet is not a place you can silence people by telling them to stop talking, and that, in fact, if you don't like the idea, it's better to ignore it, because if you attack the idea, that's how it gets publicity. And so it was a smorgasbord of stupid Missouri Synod, which is why I've not talked about it. And I was happy to not even know about it. I had to be told. It was great. It's don't you know about the controversy? The Missouri Synod isn't a controversy. I don't know about it. I have succeeded in my goals in life. This is, I'm still in the Missouri Synod, and there's a controversy I don't know about. And this is pretty good. I've set up the walls nicely here. So those are my thoughts. I'm going to respond now to your stuff, though, too. You say, I'm a student in St. Louis Seminary. This was vaguely addressed in a class discussion and suggested that criticism online was very inappropriate, and the concerns should be dealt with in a manner that involves a system in place for debatable concerns. There's no system for debating anything in the Missouri Synod. That's a joke. There's a system for people who have power to tell you to do what they think and not ask questions unless you follow the proper channels, which is what they decide you should do. And he's following the line. I'm not saying whoever said this they're not in power. They're just keeping the pyramid structure in place so that their little piece of the pie doesn't get challenged later in other places. This was, it was not clarified on how to do this. There is no way to do this. Perhaps CPH intended. There is no way to debate anything. We have something called a conflict resolution process, which is largely a double secret way to shut down debate and put it out of the hands of anybody who has a disagreement to resolve it. You have to submit to decisions before it's over. It's a legalese just disaster from the Kieschnick era that's never been fixed. It might even go before Kieschnick. And it's basically a way to remove guys you don't like is what the dispute resolution turns into. And so, like, no, there's no way. And that's for like pastors, right? This kid's an 18-year-old, 19-year-old student who read a scholastic 700-page document, had questions about its orthodoxy, asked them on Twitter, and you're like, improper. Like what planet are you on? Like, if you watch the NFL, right? They're showing Twitter feeds scrolling. It is a public conversation. Do you think that a document published by your publishing house that's a non-profit existent 150-year-old organization is a private issue? It is a public issue. He has every right to ask a question on Twitter about it. What a nonsensical kind of thing. And so what you see again in the response from the seminary professor here is what I said before. You have an absolute failure to understand the internet, the times, and the deep progress of the decay that none of us see, but's eating the roots. Right? The leadership has a lack of understanding of those things. They don't understand the decay. They don't see how bad the root is. They don't understand the times we're living in, and they don't understand the internet. Otherwise, they would have handled this very differently. Not looking to stir the pot. It looks like the lid is already blown off the top. Yeah, I mean, really, it's not a private matter. It's silly to think of it a private matter. The Eighth Commandment is almost to the level where we should no longer quote or use it in the Missouri Synod. We should replace it with the simple statement, tell the truth, and stop with whatever obfuscation the Eighth Commandment allows men to get away with. They hide the truth in the name of keeping it. It's evil, it's disgusting, and it's loveless. So you are praying for unity in Christ's church and for all boldness to stand of God's eternal word of truth in Jesus in an age of confusion. Amen to that. Thank you, Nate. And there you got my answer. Again, episode 130 of Brief History of Power, Searching for the Silver Bucket. You're going to get a nice treatment there from myself and Dr. Kuntz together. Maybe a little less vociferous than I was here, but I'm more, all of my emotion is like, this is just such a waste of our time. Like the fight that we're in, we got the Balrog is at the bridge and Gandalf is arguing footnotes on the internet. Okay? Yeah. Like that's how I feel. And it's not as though the footnote was right. It's not. But there's this thing you do if you're hiding in brush and there's a bad guy over there and you want to go over there to the right. You throw a rock over there to the left. When the rock lands to the left, the bad guy's going to turn around and look and walk that direction. You run to the right. Right? That's devil's game. That's how he plays this stuff, right? He blows it up over here so that something can burn and you don't notice it over there. So, and I just think the Missouri Synod is really good at chasing fires that are not the fire. Really good at that. And chief of sinners. How can I say this? Because I've been in the heat of it, done it. I'm tired of it. I got wore me out. Wore me out. Why are you wasting your time trying to save the infrastructure of the Missouri Synod? That's again where I'm at. Not because I hate the Missouri Synod as an infrastructure. I just think it's too late. So I'm operating from a kind of CEO entrepreneurial perspective onto where to put my energies personally. And I decided 5 years ago, it's too late. I'm going to go to the most basic, fundamental form of church and put all my effort into trying to keep one of those going. That's the congregation. So that's what I did on purpose. That's why I'm where I am now. And so again, 5 years later, oh my gosh, it's going to burn down. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. I don't want to be Cassandra here, but like as much as CPH has done a lot of good in its time, it's done a lot of bad in its time too. And if we can't be critical about it, well, it's just going to get worse. And if we're only critical about it, we're going to miss the value that we have. So, I don't know. So if I'm writing this book that's filled with scholars from all over the place, and I got 3 liberal scholars in there, and they make their liberal arguments, That isn't necessarily the problem. The problem is then if there is no rebuttal to these arguments, right? Or no way of dealing with, I mean, don't we have to like hear the arguments to rebut them? But then the question is, why is that being done in this format? You know what really happened is you probably had somebody who knew a bunch of people and they're all smart and they wrote a book. And he asked them to join it because they're friends and they know each other. And he said, you know, yeah, write about this, not that. But then the guy wrote about that anyway. And so like, and it's all signed with contracts and legalese years before the publication happens. Now, how it gets through doctrinal review is a fascinating question. Broken didn't almost make it through doctrinal review. It's really funny, isn't it, though, how it works? Well, it's just random guys doing doctrinal review. That's why. And so, you know, how much, if I'm the doctrinal reviewer and I get a 700-page book, I don't know if I'm reading the footnotes very closely. I think I might be, you know, I got more important things to focus on today, or maybe I don't know the danger of this particular language, which is code language from Marxism. And since I'm 65 years old and still fighting against the Seminexers, like I don't have the ability to even see these new problems, and on and on and on. Stop trying to fix it. That's my advice. Stop trying to fix it. Get in a battle you can do something about. So